and welcome to our live stream this week with Dan Brookman. We're here for our weekly broadcast to bring another very important subject to you, and that is disability insurance. And I know some people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about insurance, but I think this is a part of insurance that is often overlooked that's really important, right up there with your health insurance. So thanks so much, Dan, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about Stolly Insurance Group before we dig into the subject.
Sure. Well, I'm an insurance agent with Stolly Insurance Group here in Westerville, and our agency is celebrating its 113th year in business, actually.
That is amazing. Especially that's local, too. It's not like New York or something like that.
Yeah, and it's actually fifth generation family owned. We have a Lima office, we have a Salina, Ohio office, a Wapakoneta office, a Bell Fountain office, and our office here in Westerville.
It's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So sure, tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up with Stolly and your background a little bit.
Sure. Well, I actually got started in this industry because of my interest in, similar to what you do, the investment world, and
Sure.
I got my securities license, my insurance license, began practicing, spent several years with New York Life, and I kind of gravitated more towards the insurance. I think with the multiple disciplines, sometimes people gravitate towards one or the other.
Sure.
And for me, it was the insurance side of things, and I found an opportunity with the Stolly Insurance Group to come in and really, focus on life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, and help their agency with those particular products, and it was a really good fit.
Okay. So now kind of digging into disability insurance. I think a lot of people may have heard the term. Most people know what disability is, and some people may even had an experience with somebody in their family being disabled for a short or a long term. But what is disability insurance?
Sure. Well, I'd like to start with this. If you go up to the average person on the street and ask them, hey, what's your biggest asset? Most people are going to say, my house and my 401k,
Sure.
whatever they're going to say. But actually, your number one asset is your ability to earn an income. It's your ability to, put the key in the car in the morning, drive to work, and provide for your family. So what disability insurance is it protects against the risk of your inability to do that. And at its core, it really consists of a few different things, but essentially it consists of a monthly benefit, which is the money that you would receive if you were, disabled. There's an elimination period, which is how long you'd have to be disabled before the benefits start, and a benefit period, which is how long the benefits would be paid
deductible.
for. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when we think about this, I think a lot of people say, well, I've already got that through my employer or what so. And I don't even know that most people truly understand what that means. They have some vague idea of workers' comp from the state, and maybe there's a group policy. Some people are under the impression, I get people in planning-wise that think they have group disability and they don't.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about the difference between workers' comp and group and personal.
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're so right about that. Workers' compensation essentially is there for if you're hurt while fulfilling the duties of your job at work. And 80% of all disabilities are actually caused by an illness, not an injury.
Gotcha.
And some injuries don't even happen at work. So
like car accidents. So.
Absolutely.
Unless you're a truck driver.
Correct. So then you've got your group disability, which is a great benefit. But there's also some things about group disability that a lot of people don't know about their plan at work if they do have one. For example, if your employer is paying the premiums, which is most of the time, they're going to deduct those premiums on their taxes, which means your benefit will be taxable. And your benefit's already going to be reduced probably about 60% of your gross income. So if you take 60% of your gross income and then you have to pay taxes on that, are you going to be able to maintain your lifestyle? Another thing we see quite often is, maximums too. Maybe $5,000 a month maximum.
Yeah,
so if 60% of your gross is more than $5,000, or maybe you derive income from commissions or bonuses, A lot of times
that
variable
percent's gonna
income
be a lot lower.
Yeah, and sometimes variable income is excluded in the plan altogether. So it's important to know what's in your plan, and what you can do about that obviously is the private disability plan. You
Sure.
you can work with an agent like me and get a plan that can fill a gap, between what your group has and what you actually need. Or
So you can figure out how much you really need
yes,
rather than just thinking that you're covered. And
Absolutely.
I do run into some people that have awesome coverage through work,
Yeah.
and they really can't get any more.
Sure.
Because the insurers don't want you to be overinsured, right?
Right.
Because then it would be more profitable to be disabled
Correct.
than it would be to be working,
Right.
which could be a bad incentive for some people.
Absolutely.
So I think, a lot of people say, well, I don't think it's going to happen to me, or whatever the case. Do you have some like numbers or statistics to share with us that kind of like let people get in their mind what is the reality versus what we think,
Yeah. Well, we just instinctively have that. It's human nature to just think that only the best things in life are going to happen to you, and all the bad things will happen to
Especially when
somebody.
you're younger.
Yeah, especially when you're young, and at a time when you should be thinking about this because you're at your healthiest and you get your best rates. But roughly 1 in 4 20-year-olds will become disabled at some point before retirement. So that's 25% of people who are 20 years old will experience a disability at some point. Now, how long will that disability last? That's hard to say. It's
And the majority of disabilities aren't catastrophic. I think that's the thing that most people, the catastrophic disability won't happen to me. And you're like, oh yeah, you're probably right.
right.
But
But
you have something to where you get in a car accident and you're out of work for a year and a half, or something doing physical therapy, and then you're good to go and go back.
Yeah.
Year and a half of lost salary is huge.
absolutely, and can set you way back in your retirement planning goals, and all that kind of stuff. And so it definitely affects the work you do with your clients.
Sure, absolutely. So we're going to do something a little bit different this week, just to kind of give you something more interactive. We got a short video about a young man named Michael Sizemore. This video is from Life Happens. You can go there and check it out yourself. It's called lifehappens.org. There are other videos, and it's a nonprofit agency that just really helps educate people about insurance. So there are other videos there, resources, you can check them out. But let's watch this short video, see his story. What happened to him was not something that he thought would happen, and not his fault. But we are here to help people plan, and you got to put the personal with just the math and planning side of things. So let's go ahead and roll that.
At the age of 27, I was training for my first marathon. I was living my dream, and I always wanted to serve those who had the least. And I got the opportunity to do that with a trade association. I was Policy and Implementation Associate.
This was Mike's first job right out of college. And the employer paid for the disability insurance, they paid for the life insurance, and they paid for the health insurance, and also contributed for him on the retirement, and he could add money and contribute as well.
Michael was in Washington, D.C., and was crossing the street when he was hit by a drunk driver. He was rushed to a trauma center in D.C. When we got to see Michael, he was, of course, unconscious. They put him in a medically induced coma. They were dealing with multiple fractures in his leg, a separated shoulder, a fractured cheek, a skull fracture, and a traumatic brain injury. Michael's hospital bills were almost $2 million. No normal person could have been prepared to handle that on their own.
I underwent a year and a half of therapy, physical, occupational, speech. It's been a hard fight, but it's one I took on. I'm still recovering, and I'm yet to go back to work. A big hindrance is the fact that I am prone to seizures, and I have one every few months. Disability insurance gives me my freedom. I can pay the bills. I can go about doing my life as I please.
Mike's individual disability policy pays for not only giving him an income, but it also pays quite a bit for rehabilitation expenses. Because these policies were individual policies and not group, Now that Mike is totally disabled, I work directly with him and don't work through the employer.
No one plans for a tragedy. But when you have one, having disability insurance will give you your freedom back.
So from watching that video, I think whenever you watch something like that, it's really almost like heart-wrenching, to watch a good story like that. But the awesome positive thing about that is I think most of us as a species, try very hard, and it's amazing his recovery. But even still, I think from at that point of that video, he was still 1.5 to 2 years into there, and getting back. So I imagine Michael will make it back to work and be productive. Mm-hmm. But still, that insurance that he had will pay him back probably 2 or 3 times, having paid it for his entire lifetime. And we just don't know when things are going to happen. And so that brings me into just a short point that I wanted to make as a financial planner, and it's why I stand to be here, is when we actually build financial plans for people, except for our clients that are really ready to or prepared to be retired really soon, the one thing that I kind of error test their plans to see what can mess it up, and disability is usually the main culprit. When we test to see if the main bread earner would have a disability, what would happen, it really throws a huge wrench into the plan. It's the main thing that's not covered besides health insurance, but health insurance in our country is pretty solid now, even though it's expensive. But disability is an important thing, and I wanted to have Dan here to shed a little bit more practical light on it, because I do find that when we illustrate that and run about making a successful plan to be successful in our lives, that this is an important base that most people aren't covering. And so I just want to mention a couple things that I found. And number one is sometimes group-wise, you can pay the taxes on what the employer pays. If you ever have that option, you should do it, because it makes the benefit tax-free, which means you're going to get more for it. The employer doesn't do that because they deduct from everybody. It doesn't matter to you. The benefit's going to be way bigger than anything you're going to pay on tax, so you should do that. Secondly, you should make sure that you have it. And then thirdly, if you're unsure, especially if you're a higher income earner, I'd say above $75,000 or so, you should talk to someone like me or Dan to make sure that the group coverage is actually adequate. So those are kind of the tips I wanted to leave you with. Lastly, Dan helps a lot of our clients. I want him to be able to tell you how you can get in contact with him.
Definitely. So if you'd like to give me a call and schedule an appointment just to do a review on your disability insurance, make sure that you're adequately protected, you can call our office in Westerville. The number is 614-818-9467, and just ask for Dan.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
Lastly, we've got our last Amazon Echo Dot winner, and it's going to be John Lubinsky.
All right.
Okay, so we're taking, maybe we're not quitting the competition, but we're taking some time off, because right now we're just not quite having enough interest in it. And the idea is I want more people to want to come that are new. And to date, not that I dislike having my friends and existing clients winning, but we want to get more people interested. I want more crowd rather than just 1 or 2 applying. So I will bring the Amazon Echo Dot contest back, or if it's a while from now and there's something better, maybe we'll switch to something better. As soon as we get 25 replies down below our videos asking for it to come back. So that would be engagement enough for us, or me, to outlay that expense for it to continue going. So thank you so much for joining us today in Columbus, Ohio. It's beautiful outside. I think 70 degrees. I hope your weather is as good as ours and that your weekend will be spectacular. So join us next week, 10:30. We look forward to seeing you then.